Who to marry, when to have children, switching camera manufacturers. These are all scary and deeply personal decisions that we make in life. And usually our family and friends and loved ones always get involved with these decisions. But, you know, the only person that can answer the question of what gear to shoot is you. We made that decision. We made the decision to switch away from Canon to Fuji. And for the most part, I haven't regretted that decision. But there are certain things that I miss every once in a while. But borrowlenses.com was cool enough to send us the 5D Mark IV with some lenses, so I'm gonna go take it for a spin. See what we've been missing, if anything. For those who are new to our channel, we do our comparisons a bit different. For me, reviewing gear and doing these videos is as much about having an excuse to get out and shoot, where I might otherwise have just spent the evening sitting around and watching other people's YouTube videos. Gear is always secondary to photography, and my priority is to get the best photography I can and talk about the gear as it relates to that goal. So if you just want a bunch of information thrown at you fast or lab tests, you'll most likely be disappointed.
Because sometimes the flash blinds in my eyes.
We won't use flash this time. Okay. For this comparison, I'm shooting everything wide open on both lenses because that's what you do shooting portraiture with these lenses. Yes, I get it, a 2.8 aperture on an APS-C X-T2 is not the same thing as a 2.8 aperture on a full-frame Canon 5D4, but no, I'm not going to stop down the Canon 70-200 to make it a fair fight. First off, fair is a silly notion that's impossible to reach anyway. But more important than fair is realistically seeing what you're going to sacrifice by shooting Fuji over Canon with lenses of similar focal ranges. These shots are all JPEGs straight out of camera using both bodies' standard color profiles.
Thing, a swingy thing on it, and it has a thing that points, and a thing that is like fire, and it's a fishing thing.
You got a messy face. We didn't catch that before we left, huh? So what does the $2,000 difference between these lenses and camera bodies get you? Well, apparently the lens hood on the Canon 70-200 will do a better job of decreasing the haze, for one. But for most portrait photographers, it seems like the bokeh is the single most important factor in great portrait lenses. And if that's the case for you, there just really isn't any contest here. The bokeh of the Fuji 50-140 can't compete with the Canon 70-200. And that's not just because the Canon gets one stop of light over the Fuji, it's the quality of the bokeh. The Fuji 50-140 gives a quality of bokeh that many photographers find distasteful. Not only is it not as creamy in quality, it's known for how sharply it renders edges of things. Leaves and foliage, for instance, take on a more defined look that many Fujis aptly describe as being jittery or nervous. But if you really want to shoot Fuji and bokeh is extremely important to you, you might consider the 120mm 2.0 or the 56 1.2. But for some minority portrait photographers for whom bokeh is not the end-all be-all of great portraiture, it's important to be aware of some other factors to consider. As far as sharpness goes, the Fuji 50-140 is as sharp and crisp as some of Fuji's best primes. and when compared to the sharpness of the Canon 70-200, without some serious lab testing, I honestly couldn't pick a winner. Other than bokeh, the biggest difference you'll find between these two lenses is weight. With the 50-140 on the X-T2, it weighs 3.3 pounds or 1.5 kilograms, whereas the 70-200 on a 5D4 weighs a not inconsequential 5.5 pounds or 2.5 kilograms. I almost don't want to, but I probably ought to say something about color. I feel like color arguments are silly. I don't think sweeping generalizations like Canon has better skin tones or I just love the Fuji color make any sense. It all starts to break down when you consider the fact that we all see color differently and have different tastes. All sensors and lenses perform wildly different in different lighting scenarios, and if you're shooting RAW, things are completely different than shooting JPEG and relying on the camera's color profiling. I will say that in my experience, I tend to see a little bit more contrast in the way Canon renders skin tones, and a bit more magenta in the way Fuji does it. But I would be hard-pressed to pick a favorite. Sometimes I like Fuji better, and sometimes I like Canon files better. While I've never found it to be significant, you do tend to get a bit more color fringing with the 70-200. With the 50-140, I just don't ever see it. Aside from image quality, the other thing you're going to get with that extra $300 you'll spend on a 70-200 is that it's going to be more solid. The 50-140 worries me with the clunk it produces when you move it around and the OIS isn't on. And then when it is on, it produces this audible hiss. This can frustrate someone wanting to use it for video, and I have heard wedding photographers complain about it, though to my ears, it's not that bad. There are, I'm sure, dozens of other factors I'm not covering here, but this was mostly about the images anyway, which I had a lot of fun producing. The bottom line is, you're going to get great photos with either lens and body combination. So stop watching comparison videos, pick the one you can responsibly afford, and go out and get shooting.